The Pediatric Lounge, a podcast taking you behind the door of the physician's lounge to get a deeper insight into just what docs are talking about today. From the clinically profound to the wonderfully routine and everything in between. Welcome to this week's episode of the Pediatric Lounge. With you, your co-host, Dr. Herb Bravo, and the co-founder and co-host, Dr. George Rogu. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting Dr. Katrina Skinner, Fellow of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Dr. Skinner is a native of Fairhope, Alabama, the beautiful coastal town where she opened her independent pediatric practice 6 weeks after finishing residency at the University of Florida. She's also founder of Women in Pediatrics and president of the Alabama chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Today, she will be talking to us about Women in Pediatrics project. Hi, George. How are you today?
Hey, Herb. Another Wednesday morning, trying to elevate great physicians such as Dr. Skinner.
Hi, Dr. Skinner. Great to have you on the podcast today. How are you today?
Good morning. Thank you. Doing well. Thanks for having me here.
It's our pleasure. We always start by asking, why did you become a pediatrician?
That's a great question. And to answer it, I'd have to go back quite a ways into my childhood. The first time I remember wanting to be a pediatrician, I was in the 4th grade on the playground with some friends, and somebody asked me. And that's the first time I remember saying that. Throughout the years, I toyed with other ideas like being a teacher or an architect, but pediatrician was always the thing that stuck with me.
Wow. And why did you leave residency and 6 weeks later, you were starting a practice? You're at the beach, right? At the coastal area in Alabama?
Yeah, near the beach. I guess maybe the short answer is I'm a little crazy. But the long answer is that I knew I wanted to practice in my hometown. And I always thought I would just join the established practice here, the one where I was a patient as a child. But it ended up at the time that they didn't have room to add another physician at the time. And so I said, well, I'm not ready to, I don't want to move anywhere else to practice, and I want to be right here. And being an entrepreneur kind of runs in my family. And I said, well, let's just do this. And so I found a consultant, a banker, a real estate agent, a builder, and we did it. And, there wasn't any suitable real estate that we could just move right into. So we even built a building while I was in my 3rd year of residency. So while I was, working 60 hours a week at the hospital, I would drive back home in the evenings and get out there with my flashlight and look at the construction that had taken place on the grounds of the office. And we were able to see our first patient 6 weeks after I graduated.
Wow. And now you're also the chapter of the AAP president, right, for Alabama?
That's correct. Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
I am in my 2nd year. So we do a 2-year term, and I will wrap up this October. I have been serving in some capacity on the chapter for, I think, about 12 years. I started out as an area representative and did that for 6 years, and then served as secretary treasurer for 4 years, president-elect for a year, and now here I am. So I'll have 2 years of immediate past president after this, and then I might get to retire for a little while.
And what are you most proud about that you have achieved as president of the chapter?
Well, I've done this during the pandemic, which has been a challenge in and of itself. But I think that we have done a good job as a chapter of continuing to advocate for kids and pediatricians during this time. We have been in close communication with our major payers in the state to speak up for pediatricians, to make sure that they were adequately compensated for their work, especially with the changing way that we've been doing work during this time, pivoting to telemedicine, administering COVID vaccines to adults and kids, and all those things that, we've had to kind of reimagine in our practices.
Katrina, are you the only physician in the group?
I am the only owner of the practice. I have had employed physicians over the years. I just hired a new one who started last month, and I have 2 nurse practitioners.
There's a lot of hats to wear as
It
one
is.
person. I mean, we did the same thing as you did, but I have 4 partners.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody did a little something.
Yeah.
For one person, that's monumental work.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
In Alabama, is Medicaid at parity with Medicare?
No, it's not.
What is it at, 50% or?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the exact percentage. I know we have had some increases in recent years to bring, increase our payment amounts, but it's still not at parity.
Heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
How and why did you start Women in Pediatrics?
That's a great question. So it's kind of popped into my head as an idea, I would say, in the fall of 2019, right before the pandemic. I had given a presentation at my chapter meeting, I think about scribing, which is one of the things that I feel pretty passionate about. But I had worn a shirt that said the future is female. And some of us were talking about that. And we started realizing that, it's not really the future that's female in pediatrics. The present is female, because that's really the shift that's happened. A huge percentage of new pediatric grads are female. Most practice startups are female. And so the idea came about that, there's really not a place for women to, collect within the AAP, like there are in a lot of other professional organizations. So we decided that we would kind of create that. The other thing that drove me to do that was I found myself looking for a lot of education, personal development education that didn't exist within the medical education realm. And I found myself having to go outside to find that, and so I figured if I'm doing this, then probably there are other female physicians who are also trying to find this education to improve their skills as a business owner, as a leader. And so we decided to create a space where we could provide that education as well.
Very nice. And what do you hope to achieve within this space? Do you have some concrete goals?
Yeah, so the first thing is connection. A lot of women, especially those in independent practice, tend to practice in a silo. They have a hard time finding women that they can connect with in a meaningful way. Women who share their goals, dreams, their struggles. And so that's our main goal, is to help women find basically a friend that they can rely on. Our other goal is to help develop the potential of women by giving them, skills and tools that they can develop, and then encouraging them to get out into the world and use those as they become leaders, entrepreneurs. And I would say those are our two main goals with the community.
George, how did you break down silos when you're building the CIN in Long Island?
That was really difficult because doctors like working in their in their silos, but a lot of the physicians that we have, they're more established practices, kind of set in their ways, and it's hard to change. I presume that a lot of people that are in the Women in Pediatrics are more startup, newer grads, right?
No, we have women of all ages. I guess maybe the difference here is we're not asking them to practice together. They're connecting on.
We were asking them to practice together.
Yeah.
Or sort of practice together. So they're making like a club, right, to support each other.
Yeah. So we have our main thing right now is having a retreat where women can come together. It's educational, but it's also an opportunity for women to just kind of disconnect from the grind of their day-to-day life and focus on things that they don't normally allow themselves either the time or the mental energy to focus on, and and realizing that they actually have those deeper connections with other people. And so that's been our primary goal with those events, but they've been very, very successful, and they've grown every time. We have women who basically sign up as soon as one is over, they're signing up for the next one.
That's good. I mean, do they talk about like business, day-to-day operations, or other things?
Yeah, we have a little bit of everything. We have practice management, we have personal development, leadership, women's health. We have some, relaxation, fun stuff, a little bit of everything there.
All right.
I think it's always been difficult to start a practice, but I think it seems to me that right now it's even more difficult. And all these different avenues to help people be independent, I think, are really a great part of the solution to healthcare in America.
Right. Well,
when is the next meeting, and what's the highlights of the next meeting?
Sure. So we will be having our next in-person event in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands in March 1st through 5th. And it's a small event. We're limiting our attendance to about 40 people. We're already about 3/4 sold out. So if anyone's interested, they should grab a spot soon. And we'll be focusing, just like the previous events, on personal development, practice management, leadership, relationship development.
And when you run these, are they lecture style, like in a medical school, or are they more like a round table where everybody gets to participate?
Yeah, so we do a combination. We typically start out the morning with a couple plenary sessions with some of our expert speakers, and then we will break up into a more fluid afternoon where people can choose to participate in small group sessions. They can have a one-on-one meeting with a consultant. They can go do a recreational activity like a wine tasting class, a mixology class, yoga session, meditation, or they can just take the afternoon off if that's what they need for that day. So it's pretty flexible.
Very nice. Very nice.
Sounds like a lot of fun and
Yeah,
good and education and good business.
I think so. I think it's kind of like, a really nice, luxurious camp for female pediatricians.
Spring camp.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. We always ask, who do you admire?
That's a great question. I should have prepared for that one. Who do I admire?
It could be your dad, your mom, your big sister.
Yeah.
Be another pediatrician.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that I admire all of the female pediatricians out there who are working hard every day to not only run their practices and take care of their patients, but also, take care of their families, their households, their older parents, their communities, and who do that with, without looking for fame or glory or recognition. They're all out there just hustling and getting the job done. And they're who inspire me and keep me going every day.
They often do it with a smile, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, being a woman pediatrician is tough. My wife's emergency room pediatrician, and she's still practicing and working hard, but she always went part-time by choice, and she kept her skills up, and she needed to work a little more. She would just work a little bit more and make a little extra money. This way she was never committed to a full-time gig, no obligation. So part-time was good for her. And now that the kids are in college and graduated and all that kind of stuff, she still stays part-time because she does her thing. She takes care of herself. I think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, and I think that's important for any of us, whether you're a man or a woman, understanding that this job that we do is
hard,
very stressful, and society kind of expects us to just internalize all of this emotional stuff that gets thrown on us every day, but that's just really not normal. And so it's important for us to recognize that and kind of have a way to deal with it in a healthier way.
So how do you balance, because you're a business owner, you're a leader within the AAP, you're a leader of a women's organization. You might have a family and you have your own personal needs as a human. How do you put all that into balance in a 24-hour day?
Well, I think the first trick is just, being organized. And one of my little mantras is that planning is the key to success. If you can plan and be organized, that will definitely help. One of my other little tricks is to do what I call bookending my day. And so I start and end every day the same exact way. So in the morning, I get up, I do a short little segment of movement, usually 15 or 20 minutes of yoga. And then I enjoy my latte that I make. And then I have breakfast with my husband. And every day, whether it's weekday, weekend, we start every day the same way. And then at the end of the day, I have a similar kind of routine where I unwind and I spend a little time reading, relaxing. And then, I go to bed roughly the same time every night. And so that kind of helps me to stay grounded and organized. And I think that's part of what keeps me sane. I also, I enjoy spending time with my friends. We enjoy opening our home and entertaining. And that is one of the things that does help me, to kind of keep my energy and keep my connection to the world.
So you have a lot of Southern hospitality?
I like to think so.
That's very nice. We don't do that in the Northeast anymore. We don't have dinner parties. People meet at restaurants, so they don't have to clean up.
Well, you could always reintroduce the concept.
Yes. What are you reading today that you would like to share with the audience?
I have two books right now that I'm reading, one for education and one for pleasure. My book for education is Smart Women Finish Rich. And I like to every now and then, kind of revisit the idea of financial planning and financial education. So that's my current book. And then I knew you were going to ask me my fiction book, and it's my Kindle's right over there. I can see it. I can't even remember the title, but I will say one that I read recently that I really loved was what's it called? Lessons in Chemistry. I thought that was a fantastic book, and I highly recommend it. It's the one I just finished. So,
What do you think are the biggest barriers to maintaining independent practices today?
biggest barriers. So, I don't know if this is a barrier. Maybe this is more of a solution, but I will tell you that I know that there are definitely challenges to being an independent practice. And, I'm like everybody else. There are times when I just feel like complaining about whatever the latest issue is. But I will just say that, complaining isn't going to get me anywhere. It's not going to get you anywhere. Taking action is what is going to keep us moving forward. And so being involved, if you have an issue, you have a complaint, complaining about it isn't going to do anything. But when you take action on that, whether that's through your state pediatric council, your state AAP chapter, whether it's through SOPAM or the national AAP, there are so many opportunities for pediatricians to be involved, especially independent practice pediatricians. I would encourage everybody to find the place where you can get a little bit of traction, because we need the independent pediatrician's voice out there representing us. And there are so many places where we can speak up and do that. I can't tell you how many times that, within our state, our independent pediatricians who serve on our pediatric council, we have been able to make very impactful changes with our major payers in the state that have made a significant impact to the bottom line of independent pediatricians. So, use your energy for good and get out there and make a difference.
I like that mindset. That's the mindset of an independent physician. That's the mindset of success. Just showing up and leaving at 5 is not, but
Right.
just adapting, pivoting, doing things. What you did during the pandemic, I mean, that's monumental. I did it, but I did it with friends. You did it by yourself. Just thinking without executing is hard. Making decisions is hard.
Yeah. I mean, we have to be willing to change, turn on a dime. And even like right now, we're having another COVID surge, or starting to see a surge in our community. And so, just this week, we've reinstated some, different workflows to help protect our staff and protect our patients. And it was like, okay, hold on, let's get back into this groove again. And even this time, like, we've changed it a little bit than how it was last time. So the staff are having to kind of reconfigure for that. But I mean, that's the great thing about private practice, is that you can do things differently quickly.
Right.
But it is also the challenging thing, because you have to always have your brain thinking in that way, like, how can I reinvent this? How can I do it better? But I will say one of the things that we do in my office that we've been doing for the better part of this year is having very regular leadership meetings where we are very focused. We have a set strategy that we use for our meetings, so that we cover certain things, and we come out with actionable items that we implement. And then we have quarterly planning meetings, but it's been very effective for us and very fulfilling as a leadership team. So
Good.
that's something that I would,
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Congratulations
Wonderful.
to you. If you know of any other great physician that did great things such as you, send them our way. We'd like to feature them on our podcast.
Sure.
Because our podcast is basically to get good information out, successful stories like yours. That it's a well-kept secret, but everybody needs to know about it. So I think our voices will help spread this information out there.
I think that's great.
You should be elevated.
Well, thank you. Well, thanks for having me on and giving me a chance to share.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you
Been a
here
pleasure.
today.
Thank you.
very, very, very proud of what you have achieved.
Thank you.
You're an example to a lot of people, and that positive attitude is what we need to hear more on the podcast and through SOPM and other places. That can do attitude changes the world. And you definitely have that and have proven it. Thank you so much, and best of luck with the practice and also the conference in March.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.